When most of us think of trust issues, the first thing that probably comes to mind is those times when we were let down, those times when somebody made a promise to us, when somebody said they would do something, but they fell through on the exact thing that they said they would do. And so that put us in a place where we felt compromised, where we felt vulnerable, where we felt as if we could no longer trust that individual. And when that happened time after time after time, from one relationship to the next, from one friendship to the next, we believed that nobody could be trusted. Now, in most cases, when we think about trust issues, we seem to miss the reality, the actual fact that's underlying everything else, which is that we are the first cause of our own lives. Now, first and foremost, when we're growing up and we are completely subconscious, we are little sponges that are soaking up everything in life, and we basically have no rational mind to process. I believe that we have no other choice but to consume or to become whatever it is that our environment says we should become. However, there comes a certain point within our lives when we have a responsibility over our lives, to take over our lives, to start to actually take ownership and accountability of the results that we get out of our life circumstances. Now, that might be a new idea, a novel idea, that might be a groundbreaking idea for you, that might even be a triggering or offensive concept to you, but it is the reality and it is the truth. So for most of us, trust issues start at a very young age when individuals in our lives say they're going to do things and they break those promises time and time again, right? They compromise on the things that they say they're going to do, or they just simply don't show up at all. And so we again start to believe or create belief systems that we cannot trust. And in fact, we not only start to create belief systems that we cannot trust, we start to take on the very same behavior patterns that we learned during those infantile or adolescent years of our life. And we carry those forward into life or into adulthood unless we actually have some sort of shift in our consciousness, some sort of shift in our understanding, where we start to see that, again, we are creating our world based on our belief system. But for most of us, that is not the case until maybe later on in life, further on in adulthood, far past our teens. And so again, we find ourselves as adolescents, as teenagers, where we are now making promises to ourselves. Small promises, big promises, and time after time we do exactly what was done to us, which is we break those promises. We tell ourselves that we're not going to do something. Let's say I'm not going to eat unhealthy today, and then we eat unhealthy. We tell ourselves we're going to study tonight, and then we don't study. We tell ourselves that we're going to start that project, and then we don't start that project. All of these small micro moments start to build up and create a character trait, which is a distrust, and specifically a distrust of ourselves within ourselves. And we start to project that onto the world. We think that, well, if I cannot trust myself, then surely I can't trust anybody else. Surely I cannot trust life. And now most of this is going on subconsciously. Most of this is not obvious to the open eye, right? Like, you're not seeing people walking around telling themselves all day, man, I just can't seem to trust myself. And so we project it onto others. We say that I just can't trust anybody else. Now, if you think about it this way, a quick reframe, it's going to shift things for you. When you think about the individuals in your life, the relationships that you've had, whether it's friendships, intimate relationships, even family members that you're close to, etc., you've only had a handful of the vast amount of people on this planet who've actually been a part of your life. There are 7.9, 7.8 billion people on this planet right now as we speak, and they're only multiplying. So think about that. You've maybe known 1,000, 2,000 people in your life. Maybe you've known that many people. But as far as close friendships and relationships, you've probably had like a handful or a few dozen or whatever it may be, right, over a lifetime. Now think about that. You've only had a fraction, a minute number of people who've been a part of your life. And it could have been anybody who was a part of your life, but it was these exact individuals. Don't you think to yourself sometimes, there's a reason why these specific people came into my life, why I created and bonded with these very specific people? Out of the 7.8, 7.9 billion people on this planet, there's a specific, small, tiny, minuscule number of people that I ever develop a relationship with. Don't you ever think to yourself sometimes, How on earth did I end up meeting these people as opposed to those people? How did I get in a relationship with these people as opposed to those people? Heck, even in your own town, maybe you live in a small town with 5,000 people, 500 people. You still only develop relationships with a very small number of those individuals. And you could say to yourself, well, it's because we went to the same schools, because we went to the same job, it's because we went to the same this, that, and third. But even with all of those factors considered in, these are still individuals who you attracted because there were characteristics, there were traits, whether conscious or unconscious, that attracted you to that individual and vice versa. There were aspects of you that were in them and aspects in them that were in you. There's no other way. We may find ourselves in a relationship where we believe that we're incompatible, quote unquote, or we believe that we don't have chemistry with that individual. Yet below the surface, there are certain beliefs, there's certain energy that we hold. Whether it's we're both fearful individuals, we just show it in different ways. One person is fearful as far as they're controlling and domineering. The other person is fearful as far as they run as soon as there's a sign of any type of commitment or any type of, let's say, fear-driven experience, any type of, what's the word I'm looking for? As soon as there's any perceived threat. So we find ourselves, again, in friendships, in relationships, partnerships, co-workerships, peership, whatever we want to call it, leadership, communities, where we are attracted to individuals who we share certain characteristics with. Now, hear me out. When it comes to trust, when we start to believe or create a belief system, and when I say belief system, I use that very intentionally because it is a belief, not a truth. It's not a fact. Right? Some people have a belief that life is trustworthy, that they can trust people, and they continuously have experiences where they have trustworthy relationships, where they attract people into the experience and vice versa, where they are seemingly having all these individuals who they can trust, trustworthy individuals, people who keep their own promises and people who keep their promises with others. Whereas there are others who have beliefs, and this is a majority of the people walking this planet, who have held on to the belief that you cannot trust anybody. Now think about this. If you were thinking all day long, I can't trust anybody, nobody's trustworthy, do you believe that you will ever find yourself in a place where you will attract those people that you can trust? Like, just think about that. If all day long you're repeating yourself, I just can't trust anybody, nobody is trustworthy, why do you think that you're going to attract the very, let's say, few people that are actually completely trustworthy? Why do you believe that you're going to bring somebody into your experience who you say does not exist? And if you know anything even about confirmation bias, right? Like, we see the world from our own paradigm, from our own perception and perspective. So if I am looking at the world and saying, every woman is mean, no woman is ever going to treat me nicely, then I cannot see anything besides mean women. Everywhere I go, I'm going to be looking for the ones who are mean. I'm going to get in relationship with those who are mean because they confirm the bias that I have. And that is what is at play when it comes to trust. Now, am I saying there are people who are like everybody is trustworthy? No, that's not what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, again, most people believe that trustworthiness is rare. They believe that being able to trust somebody is something that you can barely find in this life. And so they themselves continue to live a life where they cannot even trust themselves because they believe it's the norm. Like, if you believe that everybody's doing something, you're probably going to perpetuate that behavior. If you believe that everybody is cheating, you might end up just being somebody who cheats because your belief system is everybody's just doing this thing. So why would I not? I'm foolish for not doing what everybody else is doing. Yet there are multitudes upon multitudes of individuals who are not doing the very thing that you believe is happening everywhere. And so when it comes to this thing of, again, trust issues, we like to use this terminology, trust issues, really is just, again, a belief system that people are untrustworthy, which stems from, again, seeing and feeling and having those experiences as a child and projecting those onto all of life, like projecting our own personal experience onto all of life, and therefore attracting and manifesting those situations within our own experience. And then on the other side of that is also having no trust within yourself for yourself. Like, again, think about this. If I tell myself every single morning, I'm going to wake up at this time, And then as soon as I wake up at that time, let's say I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m. and then I don't wake up at 5 a.m., click the snooze button and I wake up at 7. And I do that over and over again. Don't you think that would have some sort of effect on how much I trust myself? Like, just think about it. If I told myself, even for a week, 7 days straight, I'm going to wake up at this time, and I woke up at another time, I clicked the snooze button. Sure, I might feel on the surface, well, I'm just tired, I didn't have a great evening, I'm not feeling too well. You can tell yourself 1,000 things under the sun. However, it does not change the fact that in that moment, you broke trust with yourself. Like, I want you to also take that scenario with an external, with somebody, quote unquote, outside of you. If somebody outside of you said, I'm going to show up at your house to pick you up at 5 a.m., and then they showed up at 7 a.m. every single time, they did it 7 times in a row, would you not feel as if this person was untrustworthy? If you expected that person to show up at 5 a.m. as they said, and they showed up at 7 times in a row, they did that exact same thing, I believe that you would see that person as untrustworthy, somebody that you could not rely on. Therefore, how do you think that you can rely on yourself? How do you think you can build any sort of true trust within yourself when you continue to do the very same thing to yourself? And I'm not saying this from a soapbox. I'm not preaching this at you. I'm speaking to you heart to heart because this is me. I've had to integrate this, and am still in the process of developing this trust in different areas of my life with myself, keeping promises to myself with myself. I'm not perfect. I'm just somebody who realized, hey, this is a real situation. This is a real pattern. This is a real habit that you're having here, and here in your life. And then having to also shift the belief system mentality of you can't trust nobody. You can't trust nobody. Stranger danger. Don't talk to strangers. People out there are out to get you. All those belief systems that have been imputed into our mental, imputed into our psyche, imputed into our subconscious, those are nothing but beliefs, and those beliefs are no longer serving me. I'm now in a place where if I want to grow, if I want to do greater things, I have to develop relationships with people. If we want to have any sort of quality of life, outside of, again, just the time we spend with ourselves, which is vital and absolutely valuable. However, when we're in life and we're looking to build grander things, we're going to be working with people. Whether you're at a job, you're building a business, whether you're getting into an intimate relationship or a friendship relationship, whatever it may look like, there's going to be a certain point where you have to trust. And if you're going into every single relationship dynamic with the belief that is already, I cannot trust anybody, again, you're going to find that you bring those people into your life that you cannot trust. It's confirmation bias. It is the law of attraction. It is the universal principle. As you thinketh in your heart, so you will become. As you think, so is your experience unto you. And so you have to take that consciously and say to yourself, am I just going to continue to live with that belief? Am I going to continue to perpetuate a belief that is disempowering to me, that's not helping any aspect of my life whatsoever, just because I want to feel justified in that belief, right? Because we become so in love with our beliefs. We become so enraptured with our limiting beliefs. We believe that they make us, they create our identity. They are the foundation of who we are. And so what would it look like if I started trusting people? Or maybe you're afraid of what's on the other side, right? Well, what if I open myself up and then I stop believing I can't trust people and then I get my heart broken? That's just a display that there are still aspects of you that is believing that I cannot trust the world around me. I cannot trust life inherently. And again, a lot of that also comes from the doctrines and the dogmas that we're taught as kids, to not be able to trust life, not be able to trust God. We believe that God is a punisher of people who is ready to smite you the second that you do something. When in reality, that's just, parents' projection, human beings' projection onto the greater, the higher power, the absolute. When you start to know and truly understand that God is love, that the universal source behind all of creation is truly love and nothing else, then you will start to trust life. Then you will start to see that life is trustworthy. Then you will start to apply yourself in trusting others and holding an energy, holding a vibrational frequency that is higher than what you've been used to before. as opposed to being in that paranoid, fearful state of consciousness, which is attracting fearful and paranoid states, conditions, circumstances, and interactions. You shift that into a higher place where you are now trusting. And it's not going to be one leap at one time. I understand that if you've been, having a quote unquote trust issues your entire life, it's not just going to be a leap overnight. I understand that. It's a gradual process, and we got to be kind to ourselves. I got to remind myself, and those who love me got to remind me sometimes, T, be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself, right? This is a process. We're like children learning how to walk in a lot of these places or spaces in our lives. So I remind myself now daily that if I want to experience the world, my life in a specific or a certain way, I have to first be aware of what my beliefs are in a specific area of my life. Then I make the decision, do I want to stay in that belief system? Do I want to continue and carry that belief system forward? Or do I want a new experience? And once I make that decision, now I can start to do the work of reframing my beliefs, of changing the software within my own internal program. And I can start approaching life, aligning my actions with my emotions, with my thoughts, aligning my thoughts with my emotions, with my actions. That cyclical aspect of life, which then creates and manifests our reality. There's no other way. You're going to continue to look for trustworthy people. You're going to continue to look for lists of what makes somebody trustworthy, this, that, and the third. But unless you actually start to cultivate that inward, internal trust within yourself, you will find that you will continue to go into life finding nobody that you can trust, holding on to a belief that nobody's trustworthy, and so that will be. Now, if you're somebody in this process right now, if you're just in a growing state, in a growing stage, and you need somebody who is going to guide you through this process, I am opening my calendar for coaching. So if you're interested, make sure to go into the description below, click on the link, and let's book a time for you and me. Let's book a day for you and me that works best, and let's get to the bottom of it. Let's build that internal trust. Let's start to heal from those old wounds and change those belief systems and paradigms and move forward into our futures as we're supposed to. Because life is supposed to feel good to us. Life is supposed to be a beautiful and wonderful experience for us. Life is supposed to be transcending from one experience to the next, not in staying stagnant and staying afraid and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until we evaporate into nothingness. Life is supposed to be a unfolding, an expansive experience for all of us. Step into your own. Peace.